Hi. Are you feeling stressed, stuck, uncertain, or overwhelmed? Have you noticed how life feels like one long to-do list or an unrelenting Groundhog Day? We rush from moment to moment, and before we know it, days have blurred into weeks. But here's the thing. If we do not make time to pause and process, we lose touch with peace and pleasure in one another. This series is about reclaiming that. Welcome to Pause and Process for more peace and pleasure. I'm Deborah Wallace, licensed marriage and family therapist, and together we can explore slowing down, tuning in, and creating space to process so we can strengthen our relationships, resilience, reduce stress, and bring more peace and pleasure into our daily lives. This is where neuroscience meets compassion so that we may pause, process, heal, and grow together. Let's take a deep breath and begin. I start all my videos and all my sessions with deep breathing because it absolutely is our most free and simple tool to bring peace and ease to our nervous system. And with that said, I do want to add a caveat that a lot of us are not pausing for good reason. We're busy, there's a lot to do. But another thing that happens when we pause and stop is then all the distractions, all the default coping mechanisms are now gone. And then everything that you've been avoiding or putting off now bubble up. And so I encourage people to be kind and gentle with yourselves. And if you have noticed that you are feeling like the pause and pausing and breathing is bringing more stress, which can happen, that's an indicator that you need more resources. And I highly recommend seeking out counseling and getting support, or at the bare minimum, start journaling what's bubbling up. So please be kind to yourself. And if you're noticing that, that is an indicator that you are needing more time and attention to address some deeper, harder things, difficult, uncomfortable things. So please seek out resources. And I also, I have a Facebook page. I'm on Instagram. I share resources every day because what hurts me so much is there are actually really simple, positive ways to create this space in our lives and to heal and to grow together that are actually even fun, especially when it comes to raising children. I'm passionate about raising children as I focus on human development, my master's human development, family studies, parenting, child relationship. The first 3 years of life creates the blueprint for all future relationships, conception, how we treat young families, expecting families, mothers. It's just, the nervous system is unbelievable. And we're born with everything we need to heal. It actually doesn't need much. But it does need space, and it needs compassion and love to process. And non-judgment is also very key, and even within ourselves. So, as I mentioned, I start everything with deep breath, but please, if you're noticing, to, at least bare minimum, journal out. And I share tools. So usually in these pause and process, I talk for the first 15 minutes where I share insights. I share psychoeducation. I might reflect on some current events, which actually today I had wanted to talk about suicide awareness. I'm going to do more of that at a later time, because the news of more violence in America and gun violence really, really hurts, as I became a therapist. Because my father, well, I was raised in a Catholic faith, went to church twice a week, read the Bible, believed strongly in the words of what the priest was sharing, and Jesus is a wonderful role model, and do unto others as you would want done unto you. I firmly believe, and it touched my soul. Yet at the same time, my father was physically, emotionally, psychologically abusive to my mother, and I love my father. I was daddy's little girl, so, and then you're not allowed to talk about it. So, violence is huge in my upbringing, and I just always knew. I mean, I trusted the word of God, so I always knew hurt and hurting and hitting someone was never okay, and that's why I'm very pro against any form of spanking of children. Like I said, it is, oh my gosh, it is when the nervous system is most vulnerable. I could go on and on, but I just always knew no one, no one deserves to be physically hurt. And I go the step farther, whereas I'm too much. I don't want to hurt anybody. um, I don't want anyone to hurt. Unfortunately, it's caused more harm on myself. So I can't, I now have cancer. So I'm now befriending my cancer and looking at the parts of me that have allowed me to hurt myself and to stay in relationships that were harmful, and not speaking up for myself out of my fear of upsetting people and hurting people. So this is a very personal topic for me. And I even learned very early on that I was the most violent to myself, that we all have these inner critics. And so to be nonviolent, as I mentioned, I love the words of God and Jesus. And then my birthday often fell on Martin Luther King's birthday. And so I'd get a day off. And so at a young age, I learned about him. And Mahatma and Gandhi and Mother Teresa have all been idols in my life. I let them be my models. And I love studying all religions and seeing where they all blend and where they all unite. And so that has been my mission. And and um, and basically, what I found, I even would watch crime shows because I wanted to understand why we hurt the ones we love and why people would want to hurt themselves or others. And it really, you'll hear me say often, all negative behavior comes from a state of stress, unmet needs, and lack of skill. And there's a lot there. And then trauma is any event um, or occurrence. It doesn't even, like, most people just think it's like a fire or being hit or witnessing a violent event. But it's more about what happens inside of you and your psyche, and how you make sense of that. Because then any event or situation that was overwhelming for your unique nervous system, and then you have no safe place to process, express, and make sense of that, then becomes trauma. And then trauma creates a negative interpersonal neurological feedback loop in your mind, body, and spirit. And so it creates a lot of dysfunction, dysregulation. And sometimes I don't even like to say the word dysfunction, because you're actually adapting. Your nervous system finds these ways to adapt. It's amazing. And I'll tell people often that what we needed to survive our childhood will not lead to thriving in adulthood. And so we need to take time to process that and reflect on our upbringing. And in fact, that's the best indicator for a child's well-being, is that parent making time to reflect on their upbringing, and then intentionally making choices to do things differently. And so I want to go to, so this news, these headlines, I actually wrote an article or a blog in 2010 that said on the front page again. And I'm actually going to read a quote from it. Originally, I wrote it, I was reflecting on Columbine. I went to school in Colorado to get my master's degree. And obviously Columbine was huge, and it has not gotten better. And also I connected it to bullying and vital needs. So I'll share the link in my subject below. And it's part I'm going to read is, great that people are seeing that this is a serious problem. But I know, like after Columbine, it will fall off our plate and another tragedy will take its place. I am tired of talking. I'm sick of running into walls and double-edged swords. The most heartbreaking part for me is the majority of people think that we are fine, that we are getting what we need. We are not fine. The majority of our vital needs are neglected and abused. dismissed, or propaganded. I will read more headlines tomorrow about how could someone do this horrid act and how it came out of nowhere. I could reflect a truth, yet the truth hurts, and we are not allowed to feel pain or cry. Yet to feel compassion, you must heal, and to heal, you must cry, or at the very least process through our negative thoughts and feelings. But we are afraid to feel or share. So where does that leave us? Sadly, on the front page again. And here we are again. Fundamentally, as a society, we are so uncomfortable sitting with negative emotions, thoughts, and feelings, and it makes sense. And I talk a lot about neuroception. We have this part in our nervous system that's on 24/7, scanning for cues of threat and safety. And there are so many threats. And then when you're in the threat mode, you're going to default to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And we do this, it's beautiful how our nervous system protects us. But as I mentioned, what we did to survive does not lead to thrive in adulthood. And so, unfortunately, we're all defaulting, and that leads to polarization, that leads to disease, that leads to conflict. And it's in our systems. Are just so messed up. We need to prioritize when conception at birth. There's so many wonderful things that would help promote um, empowering births. You don't know how many people I help with women having birth trauma. I had birth trauma. That's why actually I'm in New Zealand. A horrible thing had happened that led to this. That's why I call my business Positive Reframe. Not that we have to be positive about everything, but that often a lot of negative things, the way that we look at it, can be a positive. So what led me to come to New Zealand was a negative event, yet I had done my research after having a traumatic birth experience and miscarriages and a stillbirth, to come to New Zealand. And thank God, because New Zealand has been absolutely amazing. I've appreciated New Zealand in many ways. It's also I'm here now, and that's where I got discovered to have cancer, and I'm being cared for here. So there's a lot. There's a lot, but it starts with birth. Our births are violence. We're not taking care of young families. There's so much fear-based parenting and neglect of vital needs. And I have an article also on vital needs. People don't understand. One of them is mirroring. I talk a lot because we're so on this rat race of go, go, go. We don't slow down. And it hurts me so much because the greatest gift is presence, and being in the moment. And that is where joy comes, and that is where good and peace comes. And that's what I hope to keep cultivating. And I love my work with clients as I get to do that one-on-one. And that's what I really want to keep promoting. Is there are really, I say simple, but they're not easy to do because there's so much judgment, there's so much pressure to get all these things done and to pay the bills. And yet we lose so much. We lose the integrity of what God gave us, the gifts that are within us. And so that's why I love to bring back. So my heart is really heavy when I look around the world and see all these people suffering and the use of guns, and that gun rights are more important than protecting children. And it hurts. It hurts. So my heart, I just want to give a big hug to everyone. And for those feeling it extra, I see you. I feel you. I hope everyone is drinking water, finding ways to bring some peace in their moment, because it's when we find these moments of peace is when clarity can come, and we can find ways to connect to needs that need to be met and set boundaries for ourselves. There's lots of ways to do that, and this is why we're wired to be in relationship. We're not meant to do this alone. So I really appreciate this space and everyone who's trusted me on this journey. So with these pause and process, as I mentioned, I usually talk for the first 15 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes, I do some sort of meditation or guided practice or exercise. And I encourage when you do this exercise, as I mentioned at the start, that if it's uncomfortable, don't do it. Or you could be, getting another task done that's technically not mindful, because mindfulness is being present in a particular moment without judgment and with curiosity and compassion. Yet for you to get to hear what I'm talking about. And I chose, in light of the state that we're in, is called a loving kindness meditation for beginners. This actually could go on for 20, 40 minutes. I'm going to keep it brief and just walk you through it a little bit. So just notice what comes up for you. If you choose to engage in it, I want you to sit somewhere that's comfortable, where you're upright, relatively relaxed. You may keep your eyes open or closed. Just really listen and do what feels right for you. And again, if you want to be doing the dishes while you're doing this, that's okay too. It's really essential to meet your nervous system, your mind, body, spirit, where it's at, and not judge it. We can't give something to others that we're not giving to ourselves. And so I thank you for being open and listening to this. And if you don't want to do this practice, cut off. But if you do, I will walk us through this loving kindness meditation. So first, take a few deep breaths to settle into your body and into this present moment. And put your hands over your heart. And remind yourself that you're bringing not only attention, loving attention to your experience, but it's loving attention. You're bringing attention. It's not only just attention, but loving attention to your experience. And I want you to feel the warmth of your hands and the gentle pressure of your hands. You may feel how your chest rises and falls beneath your hands with every breath. And you may keep your hand here on your heart if that feels comfortable, or you may lower it down to your lap, whatever. Listen to your body. No right or wrong. Now bring to your mind a person or another living being, so it could be a pet, that makes you smile. This could be a child, your grandmother, like I said, a cat and dog, whomever naturally brings happiness to your heart. Perhaps it's a bird outside your window. Let yourself feel what it's like to be in that being's presence. Allow yourself to enjoy the good company. Now recognize how vulnerable this loved one is, just like you, subject to sickness, aging, and death. Also, this being wishes to be happy and be free from suffering, just like you and every other human being, living being. Repeat softly and gently, feeling the importance of these words. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. When you notice that your mind has wandered, which is normal to do, return to the words and the image of the loved one in your mind. Savor any warm feelings that may arise. Go slow. Now add yourself to your circle of goodwill. Put your hand over your heart if that feels comfortable, and feel the warmth and gentle pressure of your hand, even if just for a moment. And say, may you and I be safe. May you and I be peaceful. May you and I be healthy. May you and I live with ease. Visualize your whole body in your mind's eye. Notice any stress or uneasiness that may be lingering within you, and offer kindness to yourself. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Now take a few breaths and just sit quietly in your own body, savoring the goodwill and compassion that flows naturally from your own heart. Know that you can return to these phrases or visualizations anytime you wish. And in your own time, gently open your eyes. And you can scan from head to toe and notice any thoughts, feelings, sensations. And if I mentioned journaling as a wonderful way to process, and if there were any visuals or words or phrases you want to remember to recall, because again, once you get back on that rat race, this just goes right off the plate again, because other things seem more important. Yet this is vital that you pause and process. So if you do have a sheet of paper or a journal, you can just make a few notes of any phrases or any reminders. Because again, it's no right or wrong with journaling. I think people can get overwhelmed and think you got to do all this stuff, and really, it's just showing up where you're at. And often where you start is messy and uncomfortable and all over the show, and that's normal. It's uncomfortable. That's how it looks. So I want to thank you for joining me in this pause. Remember that healing and resilience grow when we make space to process. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and come back for more ways to cultivate peace and pleasure in your daily life. You can keep this going by subscribing for more of my guided pauses and practices. You can share this with someone who you notice is carrying too much right now, and return whenever you need a reminder to slow down. Take wonderful care.